Welcome to the WCEG network on the WCEG Talk Radio. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. I am Dr. Babs, your show host for this hour segment on the holistic perspective. It's, as I always say, another time for an exceptional educational experience. Today, in honor of the National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, we are going to be talking about colon cancer. So the question for the hour is, have you scheduled your colonoscopy? So tag your friends, right? Sharing is caring. Tag your friends, share with your neighbors. You want to stay updated with all the programs. We're live on all the social media, online streams, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, even the WCEG Talk Radio Network. We do have new platforms that I need to share with you. We have our free mobile app. So we want you to download it, okay, on Android, iPhone, everywhere. You can just search for the WCEG Network TV. So we want you to stay informed. This is an empowering group where we impact value. So we appreciate your time and effort in promoting this community. Before we get started, though, I have two important announcements. The information shared on this talk radio is not intended as medical advice, but it's just to provide some educational information to support you on your holistic journey. And two, I want to share that the views and opinions expressed by the host or their guest does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the WCG network management. So let's get started. I always like to start with an inspirational quote, and the one for today is "Fight colorectal cancer." And pretty much all it says is get behind a cure. All right, so screening saves lives, screening saves lives, screening saves lives. You can say that over and over again. There's no if, ands, or but. We just need to screen. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So in case you're just tuning in, welcome. Thanks again for tuning in to the WCEG Network show. I'm Dr. Babs, your host, and tonight we're going to be talking about colorectal cancer. So I want you to think about it for a moment. Have you scheduled your colonoscopy? And in case you're wondering, you're in the right place, because I'm going to share what that means. I'm going to share why we need to screen for colon cancer. What exactly is colon cancer? What are the risk factors? And how can you prevent colon cancer? And then we'll end with commonly asked questions. So I welcome your questions if you have them, whichever platform that you're streaming and you're watching from, just turn in your questions and I will follow back up and answer those questions. So to get started, I think it's important to give some data about colorectal cancer. So colorectal cancer is the fourth most common cancer in the United States, and is the second leading cause of death from cancer. All right, so to just take that in, it's the fourth common cause of cancer in the United States and the second cause of death from cancer. And so it affects all races, all ethnic groups, and is commonly seen in ages 50 and above. Although the guidelines have recently changed where it's now that we screen at 45 instead of 50, because they're finding some incidents younger than 50. So in the 30s, we've seen people in the 40s, so the guidelines actually changed to 45. But the good news is that colon cancer is one of those cancers that if you just screen early, you can prevent a lot of disability, disease, even death, just screening alone. And so 6 out of 10 deaths from colorectal cancer can be preventable. So we need to be educated as a community, our healthcare providers that are listening, our families, we all need to work together to encourage each other. And this month of March is colorectal cancer screening. So what is colorectal cancer? It's cancer that develops in the colon, right? And it goes all the way from the colon, all the way. So you have this, and I'm going to share, let me just share this picture. I think it'll be better if I share this picture for you, so you see exactly. Let's see. Let me share the picture. Guess this picture will be fine. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the colon, and it's quite long, as you can see. You have the ascending and you have the transient, and then you have the descending all the way to the sigmoid and the rectum. And all of within here, when you have abnormal cells that form, they begin to transform. So it forms and then it begins to transform. And unfortunately, if nothing is done, it can form into malignant tumors, malignant cells that become tumors in the colon. So this is colorectal cancer. It can be found in any area of the colon. So that is what we refer to as colorectal cancer. And so the question then will be, what are those risk factors? What happens? How is it? Where does it come from? What leads to this? So there's several risk factors. Age is certainly one of them. So it tends to occur in ages majority 50 and above. As I mentioned, sometimes it occurs in young people, in teenagers. And the average age for colorectal cancer is somewhere between 68, right? And that's for men, and then 72 for women. And it could be female, male, there's just no discrimination. And even the same thing with African Americans, even though some studies might show more African Americans versus Caucasians, but just generally African Americans, Hispanics tend to have a lot of colorectal cancer. Other things that we need to be aware of is race. I mentioned age, right? So older people, race is another one. Black people tend to have the highest rates of colorectal cancer, whether it's through family history. Unfortunately, Black women are more likely to die from colorectal cancer than any other race. So this is something that we need to be aware of, right? We need to be able to prevent these diseases. If we know better, we do better. So we need to be aware. Now, family history is another risk factor, right? So first degree though, so it has to be first degree. And when I say first degree, what I mean by that is parents, brothers, sisters, children, distant family members like aunties, uncles, nephews. That's also significant, but not as much as the first degree family members. So you need to know what your family history is. I know sometimes in families, you don't like to talk about our history, what has happened, what has occurred. But if we're living in a community and we're trying to be healthier together, we need to be open about this, because it will mean that screening will need to start much, much earlier for a family member. If they know that maybe a parent or somebody already had colon cancer, you want to start your screening much earlier than the ideal time that you would start your screening. Other risk factors is definitely some what we call modifiable risk factors. So those are risk factors that you can modify on your own. There's some that we can modify, right? We can modify our race and we can modify our age. But those are non-modifiables. For the modifiable things, our diet really, really does matter. As you can see in the colon, is whatever goes in there. If it's food that is inflamed and it's not digestible and the body is having a hard time to process it, it can form abnormal cells that lead to malignant cells. So diet, just eating foods that are processed, that is full of chemicals, that is packaged foods, a lot of those have chemicals in there. So diet is one. Lack of exercise. The lack of exercise, unfortunately, has been shown correlates with colon cancer. So if you, as you imagine, exercising increases the blood flow, helps with a lot of just benefits. So if you're not exercising, then the colon is not able to perform its activities the way it needs to, because you don't have enough blood supply from just being mobile, right? And then you have a lot of constipation. When you move around, your colon is active, there's a lot of motility that occurs. So lack of exercise, just sitting and being stagnant, has been shown to be increased risk of colon cancer. Other ones that you might ask will be smoking. Unfortunately, studies have shown that smokers are more likely to die from colorectal cancer than non-smokers. So, and again, as you can imagine, just the nicotine and its complications in the lining of the colon, it causes a lot of chemical reaction, a lot of inflammation that leads to transformation of these abnormal cells progressing into malignant cells. So those are some of the risk factors. But how can we prevent colorectal cancer? Suddenly this month, I'm not sure if you're aware, is Nutrition Month, right? So let's start there. We're not going to talk about how we can change our age and how we can change our race. We're going to talk about the things that we can modify in terms of our diet. So certainly in terms of what we're doing. So one risk factor is definitely our nutrition. I do want to emphasize at this point that we need to, at least 80% of the time, I say shoot for 90, to eat foods that are fiber rich. And when I say fiber rich, it means that we need to eat foods that the colon enjoys, right? So the food that the colon enjoys will be fiber rich foods, so fruits and veggies, and you want to eat the rainbow. You want to have the beautiful array of the colors, because each of those colors represents something, right? They represent an antioxidant that will help with the colon cleansing, right? It represents the nutrients that the body needs to heal itself. So we want to make sure on a daily basis, if we haven't had our fruits, our normal serving, I say a minimum of 5. So if you say 3 fruits, three veggies, you are definitely protecting your colon. So you eat fiber rich foods, you make sure that you're drinking water, because water helps with motility. It helps to the foods that we eat, it helps to move it along. All right, so fiber rich foods, you want to make sure that you are eating whole grains, and you want to make sure that you're eating beans and legumes, because all of that has been shown to increase our lifespan. So it's not just about living long, but living well. So nutrition is so important in decreasing our risk for colorectal cancer. I do my best on a daily basis. Again, I do my best to make sure that every day I'm having at least a minimum of 3 servings of veggies, whether it's morning, lunch, dinner, or maybe I have it as a snack. And I also try to eat fruits, different colors that, you know, give me the variety of all the nutrients. So nutrition. Second, your exercise. So exercise sometimes could be a threatening word to people, for people. So we want to make sure that we are eating foods that are healthy. I mean, the exercise part, sorry. So we're talking about exercise. You want to make sure that you're moving, you're staying active. Activity matters, whether it's whatever form of exercise that you do, because people ask, oh, what kind of exercise is good for me? The one that you do, right? So whether it's dancing, whether it's running, walking, just move. I have a lot of patients that tell me I'm constipated. I don't move my bowel for a whole month. A whole month, that's not good. Imagine that it's just clogged up. It's just stuck there. So you saw the picture I showed you about the colon. If everything that you eat and it's supposed to come out, it goes in and it's supposed to come out. And if it doesn't come out, then it's beginning to form things that should not be formed. So when you exercise and you stay hydrated, it moves everything along, right? Whatever nutrients is absorbed, and whatever waste needs to come out, it makes it out. So exercise helps with that. And I find that a lot of my patients, once they start moving, they're standing up. Even if you have a desk job, every hour, the last 5 minutes, get up and stretch and get up and move, take those steps in. I have patients that say, well, my job is an exercise. I'm always moving. Well, that's good. We're meant to move. But you want to also dedicate time where you're doing structured, timed exercise, where your heart rate is pumping. And the recommendation for that is at least 150 minutes a week. So that's about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Okay. Now I see that there's a question about preservatives. Should we not eat food with preservatives at all, or is moderation okay? Well, I love that question. You know, reality is we're busy, so there are going to be periods where that's the fastest thing to do. It's okay, as long as you don't do it too often. Now, I find that when I plan ahead, I minimize how much of the preservatives, but we don't want to make it every day. So when we say moderation, I have to be very careful with the word moderation. Everybody's moderation definition is different, but I usually say if you can aim for 90% of the time where you're eating the foods that you need to eat, then the 10%, 5 to 10% is not too bad, because hey, let's just keep it real. Life happens, right? So, but planning actually helps when we plan ahead, whether we have to pre-chop, because some people don't like, they don't like prepping, doing all the meal prepping. So if you don't like to do the meal prepping and cooking over the weekend, then maybe just chop things so that you just keep them in the chopped form, so you can just throw them together and cook from scratch. So there are ways that we can do that, but definitely cutting back on preservatives, because those preservatives have chemicals that get into the body, and the body says, I don't know what this is. And it doesn't process, and it just sticks there and forms cancer cells over a long period of time. And that's why when we talk about the screening, you would understand why I say that. So great question. Thank you for that question. So other things, we talked about nutrition, we talked about your increased water, exercise. Other things that we want to definitely emphasize is smoking. If you smoke, I know we are creatures of habit, so no judgment here. I just want to show you the data that shows that smokers are likely to die from colorectal cancer than non-smokers. So cutting back on smoking as much as possible. If you need help, speak to your healthcare provider, your physician, to help you, to provide means to help you quit, because smoking will just make it worse. It will make any abnormal cell transform even to more malignant cell, just because it is not a healthy fed environment. As you can imagine, all the fumes inside, the blood that is supposed to be filled with oxygen and rich nutrients is hindered. And if you're hindering the nutrients that the body needs, then the cells can just transform to whatever it likes. So those are modifiable risk factors that we should pay close attention to. Now, we need to talk about screening. So I'm going to ask back the question that I asked at the beginning. Have you ordered your colonoscopy? Have you been putting it off? Have you completed it? These are also important. So the question then will be, well, I don't know which one to order. I don't know which one to ask my doctor for. Well, let me share with you the different types of screening. I already told you that screening starts at the age of 45, provided you don't have a risk factor. So if you have maybe a family member that was diagnosed at 50, you want to start 10 years from the diagnosed family member. So that would be 40 years old. And there are different screening types. We have the standard one, we have a colonoscopy, and that is where you will drink a liquid, and it will help to clean out your gut, clean it, the whole colon. It will clean it out, and they will take a scope, right? And they will, through the rectum, just to visualize the colon, just the whole colon that I spoke about, they will visualize it and see if they find any polyps. And I can just show that picture again so that it helps to, I think, it always helps to see. Okay, so the colonoscopy, it's a scope that will come from the bottom, the rectum, and it's like a tiny scope that will go in the internal layer of this colon to see if there are polyps, to see what is going on, because if there are any polyps, they can actually remove it. So that is a colonoscopy, and that lasts 10 years. The beauty about it is that you don't get it every year, you only get it every 10 years. And it cleans out anything that they find, take care of it right away. There's what we call a sigmoidoscopy, which is not every 10 years, it's actually every 5 years. Some of you might have heard about a stool test. A stool test, usually that is done every year. Every year, if you don't want to go through the rigors of having a scope and drinking that golightly, I'm sure some people have had to do the golightly, you can do a stool test. But the stool test only suffices for 1 year. So you would just have to do the stool test, where you would take a stool sample, it will be submerged in the lab, and then they will look to see if they can see any abnormal cells, any red blood cells, any blood. So that's usually what they do with the stool test. Now, I recently was reluctant to get, so I'm the physician sharing getting a colonoscopy, right? I was excited when it was 50 because I'm 47 at the moment. And for 2 years now, my doctor has been telling me, but the guidelines is going to change. It's 45. And I was hesitant. I was really being hesitant about it. But the more and more I saw the data and younger people having it, I just had to talk myself into it. I was like, so now I've scheduled my colonoscopy. I'm going to be getting that done next month. And I actually inquired from my primary care physician that I learned that there was a tablet that you can take, right? So you can take a tablet. But even with the tablet, if you're not drinking that whole gallon of Golightly, which tastes horrible from people that have done it, I found that the tablets would just cut in half what you would need to drink. You would still need to drink. So what I found that has worked better for patients that have done it is, a team of friends who do it together, have like a Golightly party, and they will drink the Golightly as instructed, and then they have the colonoscopies. So you can do the tablet, but you're still going to be drinking. So I decided that if I'm still going to be drinking for and you actually get, I think they said 25 tablets. So I think it's a little bit more complicated. So you just have to psych yourself. Just know the benefit of why you're having a colonoscopy is really to help you. And you only get it for 10 years, provided they don't find anything. If they do find polyps, though, depending on the size of the polyps and what they find, you could get a repeat test sooner than the 10-year period. So those are some of the ways that you can. So the stool test is one, the sigmoidoscopy, the colonoscopy, those are other, more intensive ways of doing it. Now, the common question that I've had patients ask is, am I going to be sedated? Am I going to wake up after I have the sedation? So for stool tests, you certainly are not going to be sedated, right? Because you're just doing it at home, sending in the stool sample, and they would let you know. There's some stool tests that is every year. There's some that is every 3 years, depending on the advanced nature of the stool test that you do. For the sigmoidoscopy, usually no, you don't have to. But again, remember that is every 5 years. Right now, the colonoscopy, yes, you will be sedated, but I mean, it's not like something that's going to knock you out like you're in full surgery. All right, that's a colonoscopy is every 10 years. So this is important for you to know. What kind of test are you expecting to have for colonoscopy? Any of those that will require mild sedation, you need to have a family member with you that will go with you, because you don't want to be driving having completed this procedure. So commonly asked questions are, how will I even know that I have something going on with my colon? It comes in different ways. You could have several symptoms. You could have symptoms like just diarrhea, or you could just persistent diarrhea, and it wasn't as if you ate anything abnormal. You could also have pain, just uncontrollable pain. You don't know where it started from, and it's crampy. It's, you're feeling nausea. Some people have blood in their stool. Anytime I hear a patient tell me that they have blood in their stool, whether it's from hemorrhoids, I am always very, very concerned about that. So I always want to order a colonoscopy right away. I don't want to play around with it. So if you know anybody, friends, aunties, neighbors, anyone that tells you, oh, it's just when I strain, I have blood, let your physician decide that. Let your provider decide that. But don't keep it to yourself. Again, colorectal cancer is easily preventable. I tell you, we just need to do the screening. And I know it can be uncomfortable, but it's just for that short period. It's very, very fast, very quick. So you want to make sure anytime you have blood in your stool, any strain of blood, anything like that, you want to make sure that you talk to your healthcare provider. So those are some of the things I want to share in terms of the symptoms: weight loss, blood in the stool, cramping, diarrhea. You want to certainly make sure that you talk to your healthcare provider. Okay, so what exactly is a polyp, and does having them mean that you definitely have cancer? Absolutely not. So no, a polyp is just pretty much, it's a circular structure that forms in the lining of the colon. All right, so if some people, depending on what they kind of eat, if you don't eat fiber-rich foods serves as a broom. It sweeps all the food product, the waste out of the way. So you can imagine if you're not eating fiber-rich foods, things tend to stick to the colon. And when they stick, they form this little pouch by the lining of the colon. And depending on the level of transformation that occurs in them will determine if it's cancerous or not. So not all polyps are cancerous. Majority of them are not, depending on, family history and all of that. But certainly polyps are one of those things that can be removed during, a colon cancer screen. So great question there. Now, people usually ask, how often do I need to have a colonoscopy? Just to reiterate the fact, for colonoscopy, it's 10 years, provided they don't find a polyp. For sigmoidoscopy, it's 5. And then stool test, you just do that for 1 to 3 years. All right. So I think we've talked quite a bit on all the different things that can occur, but I hope that you're encouraged today to schedule that. I have scheduled mine. I'm not being stubborn anymore. I'm going to get mine. I was waiting for 50 because it was always 50 for many years, but I'm like, what is it? It's not going to hurt me. It's going to actually help me. What we find is that if we do things in community, it's actually better than doing things in isolation. Excuse me. All right, so we've come now to the part where I've already integrated some of the commonly asked questions, but I do want to just say 2 more things that I've found patients say during their colonoscopies, questions that they want to ask about colon cancer screening. The question that I found commonly asked from patients is, well, so what if I have colon cancer? What can I do? Does it mean that it's all doom? That's the end? No, it's not. I have an aunt who is 86 years old now, almost 87, and she had colorectal cancer when she was 70 years old, and she's still doing well. So her symptoms, I actually interviewed her on one of my podcasts, and we wrote about her success story in one of the journals, because she didn't have a colon screen. She was healthy, but she didn't think she needed to be screened. She says it all the time, that I'm always healthy, I walk, why do I need to get screened? So she never did her colon screening at 70. Usually the goal is to end at 75. So you do it every 10 years until you turn 75, then you don't have to do it again. So she was 70 or somewhere a little before 70, and she just was not interested. And she started having diarrhea, uncontrollable diarrhea, having abdominal cramp, and she was losing weight. And they did a CT scan, really didn't find much, scheduled a colonoscopy, and then they found stage 3, somewhere between 2 and 3. And so they took it out. They took it out, and she was eating well, and she did well. She healed well. So she's 86, almost 87 now. So it's not all, it's not like, the end of the world if there's colon cancer. As long as you get checked quickly, you get it removed, your doctor will definitely have those conversations with you about what the next steps, what are the best treatment. But I always say cancer, generally, it feeds on sugar, inflammation, preservatives, chemicals, all of those. That is what makes the cancer cells happy. But what makes it die and kill off is when you have a nourishing environment. So that is one question that tends to come up a lot. If there is colon cancer, what's the prognosis? So depending on the stage and depending on the state of the individual determines, but most times patients are able to recover from a colorectal cancer. The second question that tends to get asked a lot is aspirin. Should I take aspirin? Yeah, should I take aspirin? Because the older, as I have mentioned, colorectal cancer, colon cancer tends to occur as you get older, although now we're finding much younger. And the reason is because of all the things we're eating, all the preservatives, all the foods, that taste good, but does the body no good? It's just everywhere. So younger people are getting diseases that older people get. So we need to change that story as a community. Remember, this network is to share life into the community, that we will be healthy and strong and just powerful, doing the work that God has called us to do, right? We can't do it if we're not healthy. So back to what I was saying, with aspirin use for older patients, maybe they're on it because the doctors told them that they should be on it, maybe have some heart issues. You have to be careful because aspirin, even though it helps to prevent thickening of the blood, if you are bleeding, you want to talk to your doctor about it, and then they can make some recommendations about the use of aspirin. Okay, so you have to be very mindful of that. Anything that can increase the risk of bleeding, you want to talk to your healthcare provider. So I see a question, and thank you for that question. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Actually, two questions. So why stop colorectal screening at 75? The reason is because of the studies, right? So the studies show that as you get to that 75 age, it's the same thing as breast cancer screening with mammograms. It actually decreases. So you have a decline in the incidence of those cancer cells, right? So 75 is usually when you stop those screenings. But if a patient comes at their 76 and they're 77 and they're having complaints, it's individualized at that point. Then you determine what screening is appropriate for that person. But if there's an age that it increases and it increases and increases, and then it begins to slope down. So that's why. And then the other question was about laxatives. I know there's a big market detoxification, laxatives, hair. I know. Well, the truth about the matter is God naturally created us in such a way that our body, it just knows what to do if you give it the right environment to thrive, right? So it just really has its process. But again, our system is like a machine. I say it's a machine. If you get it used to a certain thing, if you give it laxatives and it doesn't tap into its natural way of excreting its waste, it's going to get used to the laxative. So you wouldn't move your bowel until that laxative is used. And then unfortunately, some of those laxatives can be, they can just have a lot of side effects, right? So side effects such as you could end up having uncontrollable diarrhea. You can have a lot of essential minerals that are lost just taking laxatives. And even worse, the laxatives, you would have to take the laxatives and keep increasing how much of it you're taking for your bowel to naturally move. So I usually discourage it. Now for acute, like for instance, my daughter traveled to with her classmates. She went to Paris and she called and it was like for 3 days she hadn't moved her bowel, which is unusual. Change of environment tends to do that, where your body, maybe just stress can keep you from moving your bowel. And so for that, we told her to take prune. They got her a Senna over the counter, and she moved her bowel. So for acute cases, for occasional cases, yes, but not relying on laxatives long term, it is not good for your body. So definitely, and then the detox, our body naturally is able to detox. It's naturally able to detox. So we have that strong, beautiful liver that does fantastic job. So if we give it the right foods, the fruits and veggies on its own is a great detox. Now, okay, I do get it with the fruits and veggies. There's a lot of pesticides. So if you're buying it organic or non-organic, I'm saying regardless of how you even buy it, if you clean your fruits very well, sometimes they say the apple cider vinegar with baking soda and water, you clean it well, your liver will do the detoxification. So it just seems counterintuitive if you eat unhealthy foods and then you're detoxing with all those detox tea. It's not really going to help you much. So that's how we look at it in terms of providing advice on how much of the detox tea, how well are they working for you compared to the liver's natural ability to detox if you give it the right foods. Fruits and veggies, lots of water is what I usually recommend. And that way you're not having to invest so much money in all the detox products that are out there. They might work, yes, some of them work, but what's about your liver? If your liver is doing the work, why would you need to spend so much money on getting detox materials? So I think that we've talked a lot about so many great things, and we've had lots of really great questions. So I go back again to that question that I'm asking you. Are you going to schedule your colonoscopy now? Are you convinced? Are you okay thinking about it and maybe gathering a colonoscopy party? to get your colonoscopy. So this is an awareness month. So I want you to please talk to your friends, your neighbors, ask them, have you scheduled your colonoscopy? We want to decrease the risk of colon cancer, right? We want to spread the word. So there's more information if you're interested in finding out what is your risk. Should you start sooner or later? And I'll put that link actually in the website so that you can check it out. I mean, I'll actually put the website link and let's see, I'll put that on Facebook or whichever that you are streaming off so that you can see that and do that risk and share with your families. Yeah, fiber is definitely good in fruits and veggies, but there's also metamucil. Yeah, so metamucil, as long as you're buying the right ones, just read and make sure it doesn't have any other preservatives, because marketing schemes and most all the time tell you things are nutritious and healthy for you, but then when you read the back, it's really not what it says. So if you get it from the vitamin stores, yes, those are good. But I always say it's nothing like replacing the real thing, right? So, but yes, metamucil is good. They also have some fiber, I think it's called high fiber, that also helps, flush out any remnants that are in the gut, in the tract. So these are really great questions. This is a hot topic. So the goal is we all need to be healthier together. All right. There's a lot that we can find online and we need to share with our friends and neighbors. So I want to thank you. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for considering scheduling your colonoscopy. If you haven't, there's several options. Like I said, if you want to do it every 10 years, or if you want to be doing it, a stool test every year, it's totally up to you, but talk to your healthcare provider. If insurance is a concern, there are ways to get the colonoscopy done, or a more affordable way, but the idea is for us to decrease just the incidence of colon cancer. So I'm Dr. Babs, your host for the Holistic Perspective segment this evening. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that this has been valuable for you as it has been for me, because again, I'm talking to myself. I am scheduled to get my own colonoscopy. I'm going to drink that politely. It's one day. It's not going to be forever. So at least I will know that I've had it done and I'm safe for another 10 years. And I will do my best, as I encourage you to do the same, to eat nourishing food so that your colon is not like a dumpster. It's actually a wealth of nourishing foods that are absorbed properly, and then the waste is. And the reason is because you deserve it, right? You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to feel whole, vibrant, and healthy. So I do want to leave you with this little nugget that prevention is better than cure. And we know that whatever we can prevent now, preventing a disease now is better than the cost that it will take, right, to healing that disease. And another thing that I want to state, that if we don't make time now for wellness, because my big thing was not just the drink, but where am I going to find the time to schedule it? You don't want a situation where you now fall ill and then you'll be forced to make the time. So I want us to prioritize our health. I want us to encourage each other to do the same as well. So again, thank you for joining in and tuning in. Share again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the WCEG YouTube channel. There are tons of great valuable materials and interactions and conversations that will definitely help you. So I look forward to seeing you back for our next session, and that will be April 18. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the week. Take care and God bless.